Legacy Motor Club has filed a lawsuit against Rick Ware Racing over a charter dispute, and Rick Ware Racing has responded, and Connor Zilisch will make his Oval Cup debut during the Coca-Cola 600. What's going on, guys? It's Daniel, and welcome back to another video. We got some NASCAR and other motorsports stories discussed today on the channel. Let's go ahead and just jump straight into those really quickly. We're first going to take out all of the non-throwback paint schemes that have been revealed over the course of the last couple days. Let's go ahead and just jump straight into them. The first paint scheme we're taking a look at is Austin Dill's 2025 United Rentals scheme that we'll see this weekend at Darlington Raceway and 4 more races in 2025. This was kind of similar to the scheme he has in the NASCAR Xfinity Series. It's kind of similar to one he had in 2024. I think the scheme's okay. It's not fantastic, but I think it's an okay looking scheme overall. The next paint scheme we're taking a look at is Mason Massey's 2025 True Shine scheme that we'll see next weekend at Bristol. I actually really like this scheme. I like the blue. I like the yellow number. The sponsorship placement's in a really good spot. I think it's a nice looking car. It'll be pretty good to see out on the track at Bristol. And the final paint scheme we're taking a look at is Tony Breidinger's 2021 Call Before You Dig 811 scheme that I believe we're going to see at Rockingham in a couple of weeks. I think the scheme actually looks solid in my opinion. It's good that Tony Breidinger continues to pick up sponsors for the season. I do think the car, all things considered, does look all right, and I'm definitely looking forward to see it on the racetrack later this year. And now we're going to head on to the next story of today's episode as we're talking about the Darlington purses for this weekend. So every time you have a NASCAR Cup, Xfinity, and Truck Series race, Bob Pockets puts out the purse money for the event. And for the Cup race, it's $11,055,250. And for the Xfinity race, it's $1,651,939. Some solid purse money for this weekend, especially on the Cup side, obviously with the new charter agreement that came in for 2025. The teams are going to get more of that TV money for this year. And for Xfinity, it's actually some pretty decent money as well, closer to that $2 million range. We've seen some increases this year, of course, for the Xfinity Series this year. Overall, I do think the numbers are pretty solid, all things considered, for the weekend, and it's good that Cup and Xfinity continue to increase the purse money, so I think that's really important for the series, in my honest opinion. And now we're going to head on to the next story of today's episode as we're talking about the Wood Brothers. As it was announced on Wednesday afternoon that the Wood Brothers will officially serve as Grand Marshals for the NASCAR Cup Series race at Darlington Raceway and will give the command for the Cup race at Darlington. The Wood Brothers, the most iconic family, or one of the most iconic families in NASCAR history, have been around for 75 years, have already, of course, picked up a win with Josh Berry this year, and they've been very fast off the truck in 2025. Look, the most competitive they've been since either Matt DiBenedetto's been in that car or when Ryan Blaney was in that car about a decade ago. And I think it's awesome that they're going to get the chance and opportunity to give the command for the NASCAR Cup Series race at Darlington. I think they're going to do a really solid job, all things considered, and I think that they are going to do a good job. It's an iconic family. Everyone from the family that's still there, I think it's great they'll be given the command for the Cup Series race at Darlington. And now we're going to head on to the next story of today's episode as we're talking about Josh Bilicki. As it was announced on Wednesday morning that Josh Bilicki will drive the number 66 for Garage 66 next weekend at Bristol Motor Speedway, and Manscaped will be the sponsor on the car. I believe this will be Josh Bilicki's first Cup Series start for 2025. It's unknown at the moment how many races Josh Bilicki is going to run. I have heard maybe he might run the Chicago Street Course later this year with MBM or the Garage 66 team. There's a chance he also could run the Coke 600. There's rumors this team may enter the Coke 600 later this year. We'll have to kind of wait and see. We also could see Casey Mears make more starts to this program down the road. For Josh, solid driver in my opinion. He can get the best out of equipment from time to time, and I do think that he is going to do a solid job in this car for sure. I think the car also looks really, really nice. I think the goal is to try to get that car up to speed. We'll see what Josh Bilicki can do in this 66 car. We'll see how competitive he can definitely be this weekend. And now we're going to head on to the next story of today's episode as we're talking about YouTube. As it was reported by Adam Stern, I believe on Thursday or Friday, that NASCAR is hiring a manager for its YouTube channel as their YouTube channel looks to have a major rebrand going forward into the future. There's obviously been a lot of changes happening on the social side of things. They updated the NASCAR.com page very recently over the course of the last year. There's been some issues that I've had with the website personally, and now they're looking to revamp their YouTube channel. They've added the NASCAR Canada series, which is going to be streamed on the YouTube channel going forward. And I think getting someone that knows when it comes to YouTube how to run a page, I think it's very, very important. And I'm very intrigued to see who they are going to get. Are they going to get someone who is in the YouTube space, who knows about editing, some of those those top YouTubers? Could they get someone like an Iceberg, perhaps, or like an Eric Issa to kind of manage that YouTube page? Or are they going to get someone that kind of knows social media that isn't on the YouTube side? That's something that I'm very intrigued to see, because I think when it comes to YouTube, that is very important to grow the sport. NASCAR's YouTube channel has been growing pretty quickly, but I think there's ways for it to definitely improve and get better. So I think this is a very important step for the future of the sport, all things considered, on the social media side. I hope down the road we also get to see some races stream. So I think the YouTube page is something we definitely need to be keeping our eyes out on for sure as time goes on. And now we're going to head on to the next story of today's episode, as we're taking a look at all the throwback campaign schemes that have been revealed over the course of the last couple of days. Let's go ahead and just jump straight into it. The first throwback paint scheme we're taking a look at is Anthony Alfredo's 2005 Sterling Marlin J. McMurray throwback that we'll see this weekend. I like this one. They've got the 40 car, the Coors car, with the 42 font that Jay McMurray ran in 2005. I'm always sucker for the Coors cars. This one looks really good. I think that the team knocked this one out of the park, and it's going to be nice to see this car out on the track. The next throwback we're taking a look at is Greg Van Alst's 2025 Ryan Reed throwback to Ryan Reed's Lilly Diabetes car from 2015 to around 2017 or 2018. This one looks really, really solid. I think they actually did a really good job on one, and it's kind of cool that Ryan Reed is getting a throwback. I think this one is actually really good. The next throwback we're taking a look at is Todd Gilliland's 2025 Ray Fox throwback. I like this. I think it's nice they're doing this one for sure. I think the front row nailed this one for sure. The number font's correct, and many things about the scheme do look really, really good. It's going to be nice to see this one out on the racetrack for sure at Darlington. The next throwback paint scheme we're taking a look at is Zane Smith's 2025 Long John Silver's throwback that we'll see this weekend. I'm not a fan of this. This is one they ran last year for Todd Gilliland. I think they could have done something a little bit different. I get they want Long John Silver's on the car, but I think there's a lot more that could have been done with the scheme for sure. It's not that great. It's one of my least favorite ones we've seen so far this year. And the final throwback we're taking a look at is J.J. Yeley's 2025 Bill Elliott Course throwback that we'll see at Darlington. This one is one of the best ones I think we've seen this year. NY Racing knocked this one out of the park. The colors are in the correct position. The number looks correct. The number font changed. The Wawa is like the Coors look. I think is one of the best ones we've seen so far this year. It does look really, really good, and I absolutely do believe that this team knocked this one out of the park. I think this one is one of the best ones we have seen for sure this year. And now we're going to head on to the next story of today's episode, as we're talking about Rhett Jones Racing. As it was announced a couple days ago on Wednesday that Rhett Jones Racing will be joining the NASCAR Euro Series in 2025 and will be a two-car team in the NASCAR Euro Series. They will have Liam Hesmans and Gil Linster in the cars. Both drivers, I believe, had some success in the lower series of the NASCAR Euro Series. And, of course, Reese Hesmans has made some starts in the NASCAR Cup Series, who is the brother of Liam. And I think that Gil Linster has won some races in the NASCAR Euro Series as well. Rhett Jones Racing recently hired Greg Zipadelli over the offseason. I think he's one of the people behind making this decision happen. And I think that Rhett Jones Racing is becoming a stronger organization. We're going to talk about Cleetus and McFarland here in just a short little bit. But it's pretty kind of wild to see that Rhett Jones Racing is expanding their presence and not going Xfinity racing like it's been rumored they may go this year, but looking to go do some NASCAR Euro racing. I think it's actually kind of cool, though, in all honesty, and I think it's pretty nice to see that they are going to be doing the NASCAR Euro Series stuff in 2025. I hope they're very fast and can be very, very competitive, because it'd be nice to see another team out on the track that can show some good speed. We'll see what they can do and see if they can be competitive, because I think it's awesome that we have another team from the U.S. going over there. I think they will have a chance to definitely be pretty competitive, in my honest opinion. And now we're going to head on to the next story of today's episode, as we're talking about Kyle Larson. Now, we do have a couple Kyle Larson stories to discuss here on the channel today. The first one revolves around his pit crew. Now, Bob Pockers reported yesterday that they are making a ton of pit crew changes for Kyle Larson for this weekend at Darlington. The only change they're not making is the fueler. The tire changers and the jackman have all been changed for this weekend for Kyle Larson. When I saw this, I was very surprised. They are bringing all the people from the number 7 car for Spire Motorsports over. Now, this shocked me and surprised me quite a bit, because I think that Kyle Larson's pit crew has generally been very, very good over the course of the last couple of years. And I feel like they've only made a couple mistakes over the last couple of years. They had issues at Vegas last year where they had tire troubles. And then they had, of course, the issues at Coda, but they also did, I believe, have a bad pit stop, I think, at Vegas, I'm pretty sure. But outside of that, they really haven't made a lot of mistakes. So what I'm thinking is that since technically the 7 picker is a Hendrick 1 picker, they're probably thinking that the 7 picker is better than number 5. They probably saw some of the data that they have seen, and they're probably like, yeah, Kyle, the picker that Larson has is good, but we can definitely make it a lot better. Good news for Larson, he's already got a win this year, so he's not going to have to worry about the picker screwing him over, but I think more wins are very important. We know Larson is one of the favorites going into this weekend at Darlington Raceway. I was just a little surprised to see this change, considering how good Larson has generally been in the early portion of the season. He's been the most consistent guy all year long, and I think that Larson is going to continue being one of the favorites for the championship like he's been over the last couple of years. So I was a little surprised with this change, but I think this change hopefully can lead to some success, but I'm not sure if it will lead to success like some are thinking, in my honest opinion. And now we're going to jump on to the next story of today's episode as we're talking about Cheddar Smith. As it was announced on Wednesday that Cheddar Smith is officially leaving Spire Motorsports and will join Joe Gibbs Racing effective immediately. As it was announced that he will be Ty Gibbs' car chief going forward starting this weekend at Darlington Raceway. When this was announced, I was very, very surprised. Cheddar Smith has been very loyal to Rodney Childers and has been the car chief under Rodney Childers since he joined up with Kevin Harvick back in 2014 when Rodney and Cheddar, I believe, joined around that time in 2014. And he's been with Spire Motorsports over the last couple of months since, of course, Stewart-Haas Racing shut down. But when it was announced that this move was also going to be happening, I was actually really excited for Ty Gibbs. Ty Gibbs, we all know, has struggled in the early portion of 2025. Ty Gibbs has not had a lot of pace and a lot of speed at times. He did just get his first top 15 finish of the year. But he has a guy, you have a young driver, and you have a very, very young crew chief. I believe he's not even 30 years old currently at this moment. So bringing someone in who's been in the industry for a very long time to be your car chief and can help you get those setups in a lot better position, I think that is something that is actually very, very important for the potential success. So I do think that this actually is a really good move for Joe Gibbs Racing, and I actually do think that you're going to see a lot more success for Ty Gibbs potentially as we get closer to the middle portion of the season, because I think Ty Gibbs has had a really terrible start to the year. I know Ty Gibbs definitely wants to be better and improve his craft on the track. So I really hope we do see that this can lead to a lot of success for Ty, because I want to see Ty Gibbs be better. He has had a struggling second end of last year. Going into this year just hasn't been great either. So we'll have to see if things can improve for Ty Gibbs going forward. But I actually do think this hiring is a really good one in my opinion. And I do think that we're going to see some success potentially for the team. And hopefully this could lead to the number 54 team showing a lot more speed and a lot more success in the second half of the season if things can get better for Ty as things continue to improve. And now we're going to jump on to the next story of today's episode as we're talking about Bubba Wallace. Now, Bubba Wallace has had a very strong start to the early portion of 2025. When people look at Bubba Wallace, we know historically that Bubba Wallace is not as strong in the early portion of the season as he is in the second half of each season. However, Bubba Wallace in the early portion of 2025 has had a very, very good start to the year. There was some stats that came out from Daniel Cespedes a couple days ago on Wednesday showing that Bubba Wallace has probably had the best percentage of being in the top 3 and the top 5 early in the year. And when you take a look at the stats, that is absolutely true. And he's, I believe, 3rd or 4th in the top 8 category, and he's in basically top 3 or 4 in the top 15 category as well. This 23 team has been electric and has been on fire in the early portion of this year. I think Bubba has been one of the strongest drivers this season, and he's had a really, really great start to 2025. I think the crew chief hiring, putting Charles Deneke up there, they have worked very well together. The chemistry is there. And Bubba Wallace also seems a lot more confident and a lot more relaxed behind the wheel. He's been doing a much better job this season, and I think he's been very, very impressive so far. So I think that things are going to continue to get better for Bubba. I look for him to continue this strong success. We know how good he is at Darlington historically. This is a good track for him. He won the pole for the Southern 500, and there's a lot of good tracks coming up. I would not be surprised or shocked if you do see Bubba Wallace win a race in the early portion of the season. The speed has been there. It's been a great season overall for him, and I think it's going to continue. I think he's going to continue having a really strong season, and I think the pace and speed will continue being there for Bubba. I expect him to be very, very strong, and I think, again, he is going to be competitive. He's always been good at tracks like Darlington, and the speed has been there for this number 23 team. I think it continues, and I think he will continue being one of the guys that you're going to have to watch out for as the season progresses and goes on. We'll see what happens for him as we do continue on with the 2025 NASCAR Cup season. We'll see if he can win before the end of the year. And now we're going to head on to the next story of today's episode as we're talking about Carl Edwards. Now, there's always a lot of questions surrounding Carl Edwards and whether or not he is going to get back behind the wheel of a race car. And he gets always asked these questions. Sometimes you do feel bad for him because sometimes he says he's not really interested in getting back behind the wheel. But then over the last day or so, there has been some photos and videos that have been surfacing about with Carl Edwards actually getting back behind the wheel of a race car. It was posted on Trevor Bayne's Instagram story, I believe, on Wednesday, that Carl Edwards was behind the wheel of the car with Trevor Bayne. He actually drove, I believe, a Porsche and basically drove it and had a lot of success in that car, apparently. And Trevor Bayne was filming the video, and Carl was in his old Aris fire suit. Then just yesterday, it was posted on Corey LaJoie's Twitter or X page, him actually in the car with Corey LaJoie. Now, a lot of people are wondering what exactly is going on here. Well, I don't really have a theory. I think this has a lot to do with the Amazon stuff. Remember, Trevor Bayne and Corey LaJoie will be working with Carl Edwards of Amazon Prime in 2025. We all know that we're not expecting Carl Edwards to drive that number 5 car for Hendrick Motorsports during when Kyle Larson is going to be off doing the Indy 500, which we're going to talk about here in just a short little bit. But I do think that Carl Edwards getting back behind the wheel is certainly interesting. And I guarantee you, considering he actually looks really good in his fire suit, by the way, the old Aris one, I think he actually could be very, very competitive if he did get back behind the wheel, as like Kurt Busch as well. It'd be cool to see him come back. But I think overall, I don't see Carl Edwards coming back, at least at the moment right now. I think the thing is they're trying to do some promotional stuff for Amazon, which makes a lot of sense, right? I think that you want to get kind of acclimated and do some building for the Amazon broadcast, and you kind of want to figure out how good you are going to work with your coworkers when you do get to Amazon. To me, I think that's exactly what is going on here. I don't think it's anything else than that at the moment right now, but I will say that it's interesting that you see stuff like this, and it's kind of interesting to see the Carl getting back behind the wheel of the race car, at least for something like this. It is certainly interesting for sure, and I do think it's kind of good to see Carl getting back behind the wheel, even if it's promotional stuff with Amazon. I do like to see that Carl is doing something a little bit different and trying something new, because it's been a while since he's been behind the wheel of a race car. I think it's kind of cool that he's doing something like this to try to do some promotional material for Amazon. And now we're going to head on to the next story of today's episode as we're talking about Ross Chastain versus Joey Logano. Now, we talked about the story at the end of the NASCAR Cup Series race at Martinsville Speedway. Joey Logano had some very strong and pointed comments at Ross Chastain. Basically called Ross Chastain a jackass and basically said that Ross always drives like an idiot around Joey Logano. And we were wondering if Ross Chastain was going to respond to Joey Logano's comments. Well, Ross Chastain has actually responded to Joey Logano's comments from what happened at Martinsville. And Ross Chastain says he did not appreciate Joey Logano's comments and didn't really understand what Joey Logano was mad about, considering that Logano was basically blaming Ross Chastain for Chase Briscoe trying to wreck him. Which, when I looked at the incident and situation, I don't really know what Ross Chastain did wrong. Did maybe Ross move Logano up the track a little bit in a sense? Sure. Did maybe Ross put a little bit of a brake check on Chase Briscoe? I'm not really sure on that one. But to me, when I look at this situation, I don't know what Joey Logano's mad at Ross Chastain for, considering that Logano and Ross Chastain are two of the most aggressive drivers out on the track, and are two drivers who have done things that, while yes, can be very impressive at times, are two drivers who can do some things that are very selfish as well, that have led to a lot of incidents and have led to quite a few wrecks in this series as well. To me, when I look at this case and situation for both of these guys, it's kind of crazy to see that like maybe the two arguably most aggressive drivers in the series are having beef currently at the moment. We know both these guys are definitely going to be very, very competitive when we do get to Darlington, because Logano's been solid at Darlington in the past. Ross Chastain's been very good at this track. We know he's one of the favorites to win the Xfinity race and could win the Cup race as well, depending on the speed for the team. I do think there is a chance that we will see both these guys continue to get into it going forward, but I kind of find it funny that we've got beef between two of the most overall aggressive drivers in the sport right now, and maybe two of the best guys in their game at this time. To me, I think it is certainly interesting. I don't know if things will continue to heat up between these guys, but I think it's kind of funny that you've got some beef happening between both of them, and I do think that it could lead to more stuff happening. We've got short tracks at the end of the year, and maybe we'll see some drama this weekend at Darlington, maybe some words exchange in the media, and I think you'll get some comments asked about that. Of course, they did the midweek media sessions, but I do think more stuff will come out from it going forward, and I think it's kind of interesting that he has comments toward him, in my opinion. And now we're going to head on to the next story of today's episode as we're talking about Auto Club Speedway. Now, we talked a little bit about this on the channel on Wednesday morning, but there was a little bit of an update that came out in regards to Auto Club Speedway's future a couple days ago. Now, Steve Phelps, who is now the new commissioner for NASCAR, was on the Hauler Talk podcast and kind of spoke about what the future of Auto Club Speedway is currently at the moment. He says that they would absolutely love to build a short track around the Auto Club Speedway because that's all they can build right now because they've sold off a lot of land. But he said it's going to cost around $300 million to build that new short track for the track. He also kind of confirmed also that they are putting a pause on currently at the moment in regards to Auto Club Speedway. It is disappointing to hear this news about Auto Club Speedway because I would love to see the short track come around. But I also think that this actually is a smart play from Steve Phelps and the people over at NASCAR. And I'm going to kind of explain why. One of the reasons I think it is a very, very smart move is because you don't know where the business model is going to be in the next couple of years. There's a lawsuit going on at the moment between NASCAR and 2311 and Front Row Motorsports, and I think that they don't know what the sport is going to be. Things are going to be changing on that front there. And Auto Club, especially with the economy right now, plus you kind of look at what the rumors are in regards to the street courts. There's a lot of talk and speculation right now that this is going to be the final year for the Chicago street courts being on the schedule. And many think that that is what is going to be changing in the sport here very, very soon. So I think the NASCAR is kind of looking at that at the same time as well. So to me, when I look at this, this actually is kind of a smart decision on NASCAR's part. I don't agree with a lot of things that NASCAR does with some of the new things, especially they've been doing, but I think that Steve Phelps saying this, it does have some sense to it. It does make sense to me, and I think it's smart to kind of put a pause on something, considering you don't really know what the future of it is going to look like in the coming years. So we'll see what happens in regards to Auto Club and see if things do happen and things can get moving on that front. We'll just have to kind of wait and see what happens, and we'll see if we do see some movement in regards to the future of Auto Club in the next couple of years. We'll see what happens on that front soon. And now we're going to jump on to the next story of today's episode as we're talking about Cleetus McFarland. As it was announced and reported by Sacking Pennies and Break Hard as well, that Cleetus McFarland has confirmed that he will run the ARCA race at Bristol Motor Speedway on September 11th, driving a number 30 car for Rhett Jones Racing. This will be Cleetus McFarland's third scheduled start currently at the moment. He did run the Daytona opener for ARCA, which of course was one of the biggest disasters in ARCA history and was a complete crash fest, but most people tuned in that ARCA race at Daytona because Cleetus McFarland was behind the wheel of the car. He also is expected to run during the Jack Links 500 weekend at Talladega Super Speedway in the number 30 car with Rhett Jones Racing. We'll hopefully see him have a little bit more success than we did see him have at Daytona. But Cleetus McFarland is very, very good for the sport. And Cleetus has said in the past as well, his long-term goal is to make it up and run the Daytona 500, which he could be eligible for the OEP down the road if he does make enough starts in ARCA. But I'm not sure if NASCAR is going to prove him because he hasn't made a National Series start in the Truck Series, the Xfinity Series, or the Cup Series, which I do think the long-term goal for Cleetus is I think he does want to race in trucks maybe in the next couple of years, it sounds like, and may even want to do some Xfinity Series starts as well in the near future. But he's got to get a little more experience first. And I think Bristol is going to be his first true test because it is a short track. And I think that he could be very, very competitive considering he has driven at this track for the Freedom Factory stuff. So he does have experience here from Freedom Factory. But Freedom Factory, to be fair, is completely different of what we've seen because they do bring some dirt in, I'm pretty sure, for those events. But he hasn't ran a stock car at this track before. But I do think in regards to this, I would love to see him be competitive. ARCA is not as strong right now at this moment right now. And I think ARCA really needs a big superstar. And NASCAR needs Cleetus McFarland. Cleetus brings a lot of eyes. He's got over 4 million subscribers on YouTube. And he's a major, major personality in the sport. So I think that this is a really, really good move overall for him to come back and do some racing here. And I do think that Cleetus will be pretty fast and pretty competitive with this team. I realistically think if he can survive all the trouble at Bristol Bristol and it doesn't turn to Chaos Fest like it could be, I think he gets a top 15 finish because I think there's going to be a lot of crashes in the ARCA race. We had a lot in the ARCA race last year at Bristol, and I do think that he will be very, very strong in that event. So I'm excited to see what he can do with Rhett Jones Racing in that car, and maybe we see him full-time in ARCA in 2025. I think they're trying to get him kind of set up for that, and I do think there's a chance and opportunity that he could definitely be very competitive in that Rhett Jones Racing car when we do get to Bristol, in my honest opinion. And now we're going to head on to the next story of today's episode as we're talking about Kyle Larson once again. Now, on Wednesday, a lot of information came out in regards to his Indy 500 run. But they have also officially revealed the Hendrick 1100 paint schemes that we'll see during the Indy 500 and the Coca-Cola 600. When I do look at both these schemes, there's some difference this year. There's not as much of pie on the car. There's a lot more white. Also, Amazon Prime is going to be on that car for it, as if they're doing a documentary around the Hendrick 1100 documentary that they're going to be doing on Amazon. That's expected to come out in 2026, but we're not exactly sure when it's coming out. I would have to think it's going to come out during the Coca-Cola 600 weekend, more than likely in 2026, considering Amazon and NASCAR do have a deal for the next 7 years. But during a meeting that they had with Bubba Smith, which was posted up on the YouTube channel, they did talk about some of the stuff in plans in regards to it. They did say that Tony Kanaan is going to do the refresher test on April 23rd through 24th. He's doing that refresher test so he can get approved to run and be a substitute for Kyle Larson. Now, they also do emphasize that Kyle Larson will be at Charlotte. This is not the first time they emphasize this. They've emphasized it about 2 or 3 times. The reason they have to emphasize that they are going to be in Charlotte is because of the fact that the reason I do have this and had to say this is because Kyle Larson, of course, is focusing on the Indy 500. But last year we had some issues where Kyle Larson did compete in the Indy 500, and he decided, in a sense, to skip to run the Indy 500 and miss the Coke 600. Now, he was flying his way back to Charlotte to get behind the wheel of the car for the Coca-Cola 600. But then, of course, they had the humidity situation, which a lot of people like myself theorized that was a Fox deal. That was not a NASCAR deal. I think that they were actually going to get back behind the wheel and race once again. But instead, they called it early because of the humidity situation. Humidity, because the track actually, from what I know, was actually almost ready at that point. They have to emphasize they're going to be in Charlotte because of the new rules that have come in for the playoffs. If you skip a race, which is what we're calling the Kyle Larson rule, there's a very good chance that you may not get a provisional, which you might get your points, but you won't get any of your playoff points if you are approved to make the playoffs with the approval process in regards to the waivers. Now, what's also expected is that they have talked about who will be driving the number 5. There was some speculation maybe Carl was going to be interested in doing it. We just talked about it not too long ago. Carl Edwards is not expected to drive the number 5 car, so it sounds like it is going to be a junior motorsports car, and from what it sounds like, it's probably going to be Justin Allgaier. Justin Allgaier, of course, drove the number 5 at the Coca-Cola 600 last year, and he actually was really fast and very competitive in that car. He started off slow, but he finished 13th. Had Kyle Larson gotten there to run the full Coke 600, I think he wins the race. That 5 car was the fastest car on the field, and they were running inside the top 15 near the end of the event. Had they had a little more time and Larson got the chance to get back on the wheel, Justin Allgaier might have gotten his first coupling because he actually started the race. So I think that's something that will be something to pay attention to, and hopefully the weather does not come into play and affect the weekend itself, because I think that's something that is going to get talked about is the weather. Is the weather going to be an issue or not? We're just going to have to kind of wait and see what happens on that front. To me, though, in regards to this, I think when you look at this, the car looks good, and I hope that we do get to see Kyle Larson have some success, because I want to see Larson be competitive, and I think that him focusing on the Coke 600 is very important this time around, but I also do think that he wants to be there to run the Coke 600, and I think he also wants to run the Indy 500 and complete the double. It'd be big for the sport, and I think it would put Kyle Larson on that superstar level, and which also prime with their association with Chase Elliott. But I think it'd be very successful for everybody in the motorsports world as a whole, in my opinion. And now we're going ahead and jump on to the next story of today's episode as we're talking about Dale Jr. and Lamar Jackson. Now, many of you have seen a couple videos in regards to this on YouTube, and you probably saw some of the stuff that's been going on around here. But it was reported by Jonathan Howard from On3 Sports that Lamar Jackson has filed, I believe, a trademark infringement in regards to the number 8. And this is a legal battle that might start happening and a copyright infringement in regards to the number 8. Now, I did read the document, and there's multiple things that I have to say about this. And this all revolves around the Era number 8 brand that Lamar Jackson has. Now, there is some clarification that many of us need to bring up. This does not involve the DEI number 8 font. That's not the one Lamar Jackson's going after. There was a lot of speculation, a lot of confusion. A lot of people thought that Lamar Jackson was going after the number 8 font, the DEI font that Dale Jr. has. That's not the case. That's not what he is going after. What he is going after is the Junior Motorsports number 8 font. Because Lamar Jackson thinks that the number 8 font from the Junior Motorsports side of things is the same as the one that he has. Now, when I think of Lamar Jackson, I don't associate Lamar Jackson with the number 8. And here's some issues I have with the situation for Lamar Jackson. I think that Lamar Jackson, personally, is grasping at straws, and here is why. Even if he is going after the JRM number 8 font, which they filed 2 trademarks for the DEI one, and in case that one failed, which it did not fail, they had the backup for the Junior Motorsports number 8 font. Here's the issues I have with this whole thing for Lamar Jackson. Number 1, Lamar, the number 8 is not fully associated just with you. There are a lot of people that have associated with that number 8. Imagine if Patrick Mahomes used the number 15, had the 15, and he went after every player in any other league because he owned the 15 trademark. That doesn't make sense to me. And on the other hand, the other issue I have is Lamar, you've went after Troy Aikman. And when I think of the number 8 in the NFL, I associate that more with Troy Aikman than Lamar Jackson. Consider the fact that Troy Aikman has actually won Super Bowls, and Lamar Jackson has never even made it to a Super Bowl in his whole entire career, and maybe never will ever make it to a Super Bowl, with Baltimore Ravens being a little bit inconsistent. At least on the positive, he's not going after the DEI number 8 font, because that would have been a stupid thing that he could have gone after. But even then, this is still a ridiculous lawsuit or a ridiculous trademark infringement that is going on right now. I don't understand what Lamar Jackson's goal is. I don't think he should have any way of owning the number 8 outright and completely or anything like that. I think that this is a stupid infringement thing that he's trying to play. I think it's for promotion, all things considered. And I get that he wants to sell things, and I know some people are going to be confused by it. But I don't confuse the Junior Motorsports number 8 font with Lamar Jackson's font. I just don't confuse it. It's a really stupid and a really petty move, in my opinion, between Lamar Jackson here, and I don't understand what he's trying to get at this point. It doesn't make sense. It's really, really confusing, and I think, again, it's just total nonsense. I think it's just total stupid. It's total nonsense. I think it's BS, in my opinion, and I'm not the biggest fan of Lamar Jackson for this move. It's something that shouldn't have had to happen at this point, and to me, I think it's a bad move overall for him, and I don't like that we're seeing something like this happen, so I don't really understand why they're trying to have Lamar Jackson try to play this move on his part. Not the best decision to get into a legal battle with Dale Jr., so I think Dale Jr. will probably win it when they do go to court, if it does end up leading to court stuff in the future. And now we're going to jump on to the next story of today's episode, as we're talking about the Xfinity Series race in Martinsville once again. And we're talking about the fallout from it. Now, we all know that Sammy Smith, Taylor Gray, and Jeb Burton were all penalized on Tuesday evening. Taylor Gray and Jeb Burton were fined $5,000 for going to the infield care center to try to confront their drivers they were mad at. Jeb Burton was pissed off at Daniel Dye, and Taylor Gray was very mad at Sammy Smith, justifiably so. But the race at Martinsville has caused a lot of people to be very upset and very, very frustrated in the industry, from former drivers to analysts in the sport. And there has been some fallout that has happened since. Now, according to what was reported, I believe, by Kelly Crandall, I believe a couple days ago, it sounds like that there is going to be a meeting that is going to take place with all the Xfinity Series drivers competing this weekend at Darlington Raceway. And they're going to have an Xfinity driver-only meeting. So I would not expect that Ross Chastain, Christopher Bell, and Chase Elliott are going to be in that meeting. But honestly, I think there need to be veterans in the Cup Series side of things that do have respect in the industry that need to be there to kind of talk to these drivers about the racing etiquette out there. I think this could be the first step to changing things. Is it going to? I don't know. But I think there have to absolutely be some changes that need to happen with the Xfinity Series. What happened there at Martinsville was inexcusable and unacceptable. And things like I've already mentioned need to change very, very quickly, because you cannot have drivers racing the way they did at Martinsville. The main culprits were Sammy Smith, Sam Mayer, and Austin Hill, but other drivers in the back of the field especially were making some really dumb and bonehead moves out there. And this is not just a one-time thing for the lower series. We've seen these issues. We've seen it at Martinsville many times before. We've seen the end of these races become carnage, and a big reason for that is because their drivers bring a lot of funding and a lot of sponsorship, and a lot of these drivers can get away with it because they bring a lot of funding to the table. I wish that was something that changed in the sport, but I don't think it is going to change. But there's more to this story in regards to what happened to Marshall. Now, Taylor Gray was on SiriusXM NASCAR Radio yesterday. I believe Joseph Strigley put the comment from that as well and put it on his Twitter/X page. But Taylor Gray has responded to this situation. He was asked by people, I believe, on SiriusXM if he is going to do any sort of payback toward Sammy Smith for what happened. And Taylor Gray actually gave a very respectful comment. He said, I have way too much respect for Dale Jr. and Junior Motorsports to just go out there and wreck their cars. If I wanted to, I would, but I don't plan to do that, and I think it's not a good move on my part, is quintessentially what he said. And I have a lot more respect for Taylor Gray. Look, I was very critical of Taylor Gray getting behind the wheel of that car, so I was a little bit questioning why he got it, considering he had not won a Truck Series race at that time. But honestly, the more and more I see him perform as well as he has, the more I kind of regretting him getting that car. I think Taylor Gray is showing a lot of maturity, but I also kind of remember that he actually had to work on Steve Torrance's cars in the NHRA years ago when he was in the NHRA, when he and his brother were down there in the NHRA a long time ago. I think that Taylor Gray is someone that has shown a lot of maturity, and he's been raced like an idiot multiple times. And one thing about it is he's been on the wrong end of things the last couple weeks. He could have done something to, Christian Eckes last year at Phoenix, and he did nothing to Christian Eckes. He didn't really even bump him at all. He showed a lot of respect out there. And that's one thing I liking more about Taylor Gray is one, he respects equipment and doesn't want to go out there and destroy equipment. And I have a lot of respect for that. And I think that he is handling the situation a lot more respectfully than I would have if I was in his shoes. To me, I think it is really good to see someone who has a lot of respect for their equipment and doesn't want to go out there and destroy it. Yes, he's there because of funny, but I think he understands the business side of things. We know Sammy Smith, of course, has also responded and spoke to Dale Jr. Jr. had some pretty harsh comments, Sammy Smith, basically saying that he's acting like a spoiled little brat, saying that people are kind of assuming he's acting like a spoiled little brat, and telling Sammy Smith he needs to change his attitude so he doesn't get kicked out and doesn't lose his opportunity to be in the sport long term, which I think Sammy Smith kind of agreed with that, actually. To me, I think there's a lot that has to happen with the Xfinity Series going forward, and I'm glad to see some comments have been made in regards to some of the stuff that has been going on in Xfinity recently. We'll see what happens in the long-term future for the Xfinity Series, and we'll see if there's more fallout that happens, and we'll see what happens from the meeting that's going to happen tomorrow afternoon. We'll see what happens on that front, because I think there's a lot of drivers that need to say something, and some things do need to change. And now we're going to head jump on to the next story of today's episode as we're talking about Kyle Busch once again. Now, there's obviously been a lot of talk and chatter around Kyle Busch and his long-term future in NASCAR over the course of the last couple months. We all know that Kyle Busch is currently in a contract year with Rhett Jones Racing, and a contract with the team will come to close at the end of 2025. Now, this past weekend in Martinsville, this kind of story that kind of went under the radar, but Chris Myers had actually asked Kyle Busch about his deal with RCR and whether he is considering retirement. Now, I talked about it a couple days ago on Monday that he actually considered retiring 3 years ago from NASCAR, but he wanted to continue racing and tried to find a job for 2023, which led him joining up with Rhett Jones Racing. Now, there is a potential possibility in any way, shape, or form that Kyle Busch could retire from NASCAR in the next couple of years. Kyle Busch is going to turn 40 in about a month from now, and usually when you start getting up to that 40-year age, there's always a consideration about retiring. This is Kyle Busch's 21st full-time season in the NASCAR Cup Series, and for last year, of course, he failed to win a race for the first time in a full season. His last win, of course, came in 2023 at Worldwide Technology Raceway, also known as Gateway. Now, obviously, many people are kind of speculating about this because there is a lot of talk about Kyle Busch's long-term future. Plus, we know that Jesse Love is making his NASCAR Cup Series debut next weekend at Bristol Motor Speedway, and we know that Kyle Busch wants to still be very, very solid and be pretty successful in this sport. Now, obviously, there's a lot of talk about the free agent side of things with Kyle Busch because we don't know if Kyle Busch is going to stay at RCR or if he's going to leave RCR. Now, it does seem like that Kyle Busch is a little bit happier over there at Rhett Jones Racing. And to put a little bit of defense on RCR, I actually do think this team is a little bit more successful in the early portion of the year. Kyle Busch almost won at Circuit of the Americas in the number 8 machine, and he basically only lost because of a tire deficiency, but he had the fastest car in the field. He was faster most of the day. The guy who won the race, Christopher Bell, faster than Shane Van Gisbergen, and faster than Chase Elliott. He had the fastest car in the field. He got beat guys like Byron and Reddick and Larson and Bubba. He was faster than all those guys throughout the event. Now, he has had a couple bad races recently. He did, unfortunately, have a tire issue at Vegas, but before that, he had top 5, top 10 speed. And then Holmes said they were off, but they improved that car and got him up inside the top 25. And then at Martinsville, he had one of his better runs at Martinsville in recent years. He actually ran top 20 majority of the race and finished inside the top 20 in 17th place. So it does seem like that RCR right now, they are a little bit faster and they are a little bit quicker. So the big question we have to ask ourselves is, will Kyle Busch stay at RCR? Going into this year, I said that if this team is not improving any way, shape, or form, I think there's a good chance Kyle Busch will leave the team. But I think that there is at least a slight chance and a better chance now than there was maybe about a month or two ago where I would have said, yeah, he's going to leave the team. I don't think he's exactly sure if he's going to leave the team or not. I'm 60-40 saying that there still is a good chance he'll leave RCR, but I do think there's a 40 to 45% chance that he is going to stay at RCR. I think he wants to make it work, and I think there's a lot of reasons for that. There's not a lot of really good options out there for 2026. 23XI Racing is one that people bring up, and I think they're all set for next year. Plus, Corey Heim's a fourth driver at that team. He's probably be in Cup potentially in the next couple of years, so I don't think a 23XI ride from like Reddick, Bubba, and Herbst is going to be available with them all having multi-year contracts. Some bring up the 48 car for Hendrick, but Alex Bowman has been having a fantastic season so far. He's still inside the top 5 in points currently at the moment, technically tied for fourth with the Eric Jones disqualification. And Alex Bowman's been really good. You always hear the Alex Bowman stuff, but Bowman does not deserve to lose his seat. You've obviously got other teams like Legacy who get brought up, but I'm not sure if that's possible. The only one I logically look at is Spire. He works with them over in the Truck Series. He's helped with their Truck Series program. They're in the KBM shop. It would make sense, but I believe all 3 drivers over there are under multi-year contracts. I know Justin Haley has a contract, I believe, through 2027, I'm pretty sure. Carson Osbar, he's got a multi-year deal on his deal, though he could go to Hendrick in the future. And then, of course, you have Michael McDowell, who has a contract through 2026. So I think the only way he goes to Spire is if McDowell retires. I don't see Haley going anywhere, and I don't see Carson Osbar going anywhere either at this time. So Kyle Busch, I think the best thing he could do is stay with RCR right now. I think that's the best option he has at the moment. So I don't see him leaving RCR at the moment, unfortunately, at least for now, unless a great opportunity comes up. I think there's definitely a chance. There's no denying that, and there's no question about it. But I do think it's going to be tougher for him to make that move. We're just going to have to kind of wait and see in regards to what happens with the rest of the silly season. But I'm leaning toward him staying with RCR for only one more year right now, but then maybe leaving at the end of 2026, because then there's going to be a lot of rides open and a lot of options available on the table for 2027. I think he likely signs a 1-year extension with RCR, at least for now. And now we're going to jump on to the first of 2 major stories in today's episode, as we're talking about Connor Zilisch. As it was announced yesterday that Connor Zilisch will officially make his Oval Cup Series debut later this year in the 2025 Coca-Cola 600, driving number 87 car for Trackhouse Racing with Red Bull as the sponsor. Connor Zilisch, of course, made his NASCAR Cup Series debut with Trackhouse Racing earlier this year as Circuit Americas. Had top 5 and top 10 speed throughout most of the day. Unfortunately, on lap number 1, got caught up in an incident thanks to his teammate Ross Chastain early in the event, but Ross Chastain really went too hot into turn number 1, got into the chase alley, and it caused a massive chain reaction where Connor Zilisch's tire went down. But Connor Zilisch moved forward and was starting to charge his way back up to the front in the event. Unfortunately for Connor, he got caught up in another incident later in the event. Thanks to Daniel Suarez spinning out with around 50 laps to go in the race, he went back across the track. Connor Zilisch had nowhere to go. He couldn't slow down. He had nowhere to go and runs into Daniel Suarez, ending both of their days, and they would finish both second to last and first to last in the event. This is going to be Connor Zilisch's first big challenge on the NASCAR side of things. We know he's a fantastic road course racer. He's won the Rolex 24 and the Sebring 12 Hours in the LMP2 class. And he also, of course, has won a couple of Xfinity Series races on road courses as well. Coda earlier this year and Watkins Glen in 2024. He's also been pretty solid on ovals in the early portion of the season. Connor Zilisch has finished in the top 5 in a couple of the oval races last year. Of course, he finished 4th at Kansas and did finish in the top 5 at Phoenix as well. And early in the season, I think he's actually been really solid on the ovals. Last week at Martinsville, I think he had the fastest car in the event. But then Martinsville evolved into chaos, and there was really no indication of who the fastest car once we got to the second half of the race. And then, of course, there's been some other good races. He had a top 15 finish at Homestead. He still salvaged a top 10 at Las Vegas by having a speeding penalty, but he bled a bunch of laps in the race and had a very strong and very fast car. pretty fast at Phoenix early in the event as well. Then he had pit road issues there. And then, of course, he had other issues like pit crew issues, among other things. Connor Zilisch has had a lot of speed early in this year, but he's made some mistakes on pit road. Now, this is going to be the first real big challenge for Connor Zilisch because Connor Zilisch, we all know, is a very, very fast and really strong driver. But this is going to be the big challenge because he is the first driver, I believe, under the age of 19 years old to compete in the Coke 600, maybe since Joey Logano, I'm pretty sure. And Logano, I believe, was 19 and just turned 19 a couple days prior to the 2009 Coke 600. So I think he's going to be the first driver under age of around 18 years of age competing in the Coke 600. So this is going to be a massive undertaking for Connor Zilisch. I think Zilisch is actually going to be somewhat competitive in this race for his standards. Now, I think he's going to make mistakes in the race, and I think he is going to speed on pit road at some point in the event. I think realistically the goal should be to finish the race, complete as many laps as possible, and if you can finish on the lead lap, because I think there's going to be a lot of cautions in the race, I think that would be super, super impressive. Trackhouse Racing's intermediate program has been solid this year, but it has not been absolutely spectacular. We've seen SVG struggle on the ovals at times, and we saw Ross Chastain not be that great at Homestead as well. But I think this has some very long-term effects. We all know at the moment right now there's a really good chance and possibility that Daniel Suarez is probably going to be out of Trackhouse Racing at the end of the year. Suarez has shown some decent speed this year, and some will say, well, why not replace Connor Zilisch at SVG? SVG's got the Red Bull connection, plus you see the Junior Motorsports stuff. He's making starts with JRM, and Connor Zilisch is full-time with Junior Motorsports. So I think that's what's going on that front. Now, in regards to Zilisch, is Zilisch ready for a full-time Cup seat? I'm not sure. I think they're giving him starts to kind of get prepared for that. The fact they're giving him more Cup starts, though, tells me that next year it's likely going to happen. Connor's bringing sponsorship from Red Bull, and WeatherTech's really closely aligned with Connor as well. And as much as I do like Daniel Suarez, and I think Suarez is a solid and a pretty good driver, Daniel Suarez, if he went to a team like Kaulig, which I think running well is going to help his stock for another team like a Kaulig Racing, as much as I think Ty Dillon's actually done okay this year, Suarez would be a better driver than Ty Dillon. So my theory is that we're going to see Suarez go over and drive the number 10 car next year, and Ty Dillon maybe goes back down and running the lower series or goes maybe to RCR down the road and drives part-time for them. For me, though, in regards to Connor, I think it's going to be fun to see what he can do in this number 87 machine. I think if he finishes top 25, that is going to be a win in my opinion. That's going to be super impressive, and I think if he can do that, I will be super stoked about that because he's going to be having a lot of competition, and he's going to be making his oval debut. Like, of course, Jesse Love is making his debut next weekend at Bristol, and I think in about a month or so, it's going to be fun to see it. We're all going to be talking a lot, of course, about Kyle Larson doing the double, but we're also going to be talking about Connor Zilisch too because he's going to be on the first Amazon race, and I also don't think this is going to be the last oval start you're going to see for Connor this year. I think he's going to run a couple road course races. Also, I think Chicago is very likely. I think we'll see him in a car for the team next year. And I think it's going to be fun to see what happens with Connor long term. He's been one of the more intriguing drivers early in the season. He's also been very, very fast as well. So I do expect that Connor is going to be very fast and very strong in that number 87 car when we do get to the track. We'll be excited to see how he can do in that number 87 car when he does get on the racetrack. In my honest opinion, excited to see what he can do in the number 87 machine. And now we're going ahead and jump on to the final major story of today's episode as we're talking about an update in regards to the Legacy Motor Club and Rick Ware Racing lawsuit. Now, we talked about this on the channel a couple days ago, but it was shockingly revealed on April Fool's Day, April 1st, that Legacy Motor Club has filed a lawsuit against Rick Ware Racing. Now, when we all originally saw this, we all thought this might have been an April Fool's joke. But it was not an April Fool's joke. According to court documents that have been revealed, Legacy, like I mentioned, is filing a lawsuit against Rick Ware Racing. Now, what is alleged in the lawsuit? Well, Legacy Motor Club and Rick Ware Racing are having this lawsuit because of a charter dispute. According to what was reported, Legacy Motor Club and Rick Ware Racing team representatives had met in early January on January 6th to speak about having a charter transfer for the 2026 season. Legacy Motor Club claims that Rick Ware has signed every single document that was there and signed on every page of the document for the charter transfer to complete. And the charter transfer apparently had happened on March 3rd or March 4th for the 2026 season. And apparently Legacy, from what they are saying, they basically paid a lot of money. However, Rick Ware Racing and Rick Ware are claiming that the charter deal was supposed to be for 2027, and they changed up the date for 2026. Well, Legacy is saying, no, you had it for 2026. We never changed it, and you're basically backing out of the deal. And it sounds like Legacy paid a lot of money as well to the team. Now, there has been a response from Rick Ware Racing, and they have responded to the situation of what is going on. They basically talk about the actual facts, and they say that the integrity of their team and the reputation that they stand on and uphold, they basically don't want their reputation upheld and basically be called liars. So that's what they are exactly saying. So obviously we know about the situation with the lawsuit right here. And I think it's kind of crazy. We've got a lot of lawsuits happening. You've got the NASCAR 2011 and Front Row Motorsports lawsuit. And of course you got this lawsuit going on currently at this particular moment. Now, if you want my honest opinion in regards to this, when you compare both organizations and Legacy's comments saying that they are way more competitive than Rick Ware, I can't say that's entirely true. I didn't understand some of the comments that Legacy made about them wanting the charter completely. It's like, you can't just have the charter because you just want it. You've got to do it the exactly way because Rick Ware owns the charter. I get that they want the charter, but they can't own it just like that. That doesn't make any sense to me on there. But for Legacy, I think that Legacy, they do have a long-term plan. Jimmy Johnson has come in and taken a lot of ownership over, and he's running the organization. And I gotta say what you want to say about Legacy last year. Yes, Legacy is not a top-tier team right now, but they've shown a little bit of improvement. Eric Jones was 21st in the standings for his DQ. Now, of course, he's back at 29th because of disqualification in Martinsville. But John Hunter Nemechek's been in the top 20 in points a majority of the season, has finished on the lead lap, and has gotten a lot of stage points as well. I think Legacy has shown a little bit of improvement. So what is the theory that I have in regards to this? Well, I have a couple theories. I know Jarrett brought up a theory about maybe with Dodge coming into NASCAR, maybe Legacy being a team that could go over to Dodge or them being a third-year team. I think that is definitely one that could be a possibility. But one of my other theories is that this is a partnership because this is something that Toyota wants. Toyota is trying to convince Legacy Motor Club to get a third charter. Now, why would they want a third charter? Well, it's very, very simple for Corey Heim. Toyota is very high on Corey Heim, and Corey Heim is under contract with 23XI. So some are going to think about that and say, well, doesn't Corey Heim have a development deal and a contract with 23XI? You're right. I think that there is a potential possibility that you could see a potential trade, at least for a year, for Corey Heim to go full-time racing. But instead, this would be very similar to something we saw with Zane Smith last year, where Zane Smith would go over to Spire Motorsports for a year, but Trackhouse Engineers helped out Zane Smith. My theory is that 23XI Racing could send perhaps Booty Barker over there to work with Corey Heim, be his crew chief for a year, and get Corey Heim set up. I think many people know in the industry that Corey Heim is one of the best prospects in the NASCAR Cup Series currently at the moment. And it makes too much sense for him to be, it makes no sense for him to be in the lower series. He should be in Cup full time right now. He's been so good in trucks. He's going to win like 10 races this year in the truck series, so he should get moved up to the NASCAR Cup Series at this point. I don't understand what Toyota is waiting on. You should get him up the Cup. You're running out of time, and eventually he's going to leave Toyota and leave 23XI if you guys don't get figured out. So I think that's going to be something to watch. Now, obviously, if Rick Ware Racing lose the lawsuit, this could implicate RFK. Maybe they lose their charter for Ryan Preece. Could this lead to Brad Keselowski retiring early so that Ryan Preece could be with the team? That is certainly possible, but also Rick Ware could shut their program down and focus on NHRA and the other stuff where they're actually showing a lot more success. Because Rick Ware, they're not fast right now. They're struggling in NHRA currently at the moment, and they don't have the overall pace and speed to be super fast and super, super competitive. So I think it's going to be kind of interesting to see what happens in regards to this, in regards to the stuff happening right now. But I think in regards to the lawsuit, personally, I do think that Rick Ware is going to have a hard time winning this if Legacy has the paperwork. We'll just have to wait and see what happens with the remainder of the lawsuit going for between both of these guys. So, that is going to be our today's Law NASCAR News and Motorsports News episode. I want to thank you guys for watching. Please subscribe to the channel, notifications on, so if I win a video, it does go live on my channel. Follow me on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram, and support me on Patreon as well. List description below that, and comment your thoughts below on today's episode. Word thoughts about all things talk about today on the episode, including the Dale Jr. trademark stuff, and the Lamar Jackson trying to buy the trademark quintessentially, the Legacy Motor Club and Rick Ware lawsuit, and also the other stuff in regards to Connor Zilisch. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Tomorrow on the channel, we're going to be talking about the NASCAR. We're going to be doing the reactions to Cup qualifying. We're going to be doing the Xfinity review. We are going to do, of course, on Sunday, we're going to do the Cup review. We're going to, of course, do the starting lineup video for the Goodyear 400, and we are also going to be maybe doing a Shane Van Gisbergen video potentially. Then Monday, we should have a NASCAR news video dropping. We'll have content coming out, people like Haley Deegan, Shane Van Gisbergen, Carl Ertz, Kurt Busch, Kyle Busch, Bubba Wallace, Eric Omrold, Chandler Smith, Sheldon Creed, Sam Mayer, Junior Motorsports, Trademarks, all the good stuff. Cleetus, McFarland, Matt DiBenedetto, Frankie Muniz, all the good stuff we'll talk about on the channel in the coming days and weeks. So anyways, like I said, I want to thank you guys for watching today's episode, and I'll see you guys next time for more great, awesome NASCAR content and other motorsports content on the channel like this. Take care, everybody.